Day. And of course, it's Tuesday, so we look at matters of your health and wellness on Wellness Wave. So today we're looking at debunking misconceptions and myths around plastic surgery. And in studio, I have with me Dr. JP Ogalo. He is a board-certified plastic reconstructive and aesthetic surgeon. And of course, we also do have a question of the day, and we're asking you, which age group do you think gets the most plastic surgery procedures, and why do you think that is? Which age group do you think gets the most plastic surgery procedures, and why do you think that is? Of course, you can tell us your thoughts on the same. Our handles are on, of course, Facebook and X, that is at K24 TV, and our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. Harry, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
No, we're happy you're here because, this is not a new conversation.
Yeah.
This is something that has been happening in the country, and it's becoming quite popular. But what we want to understand is we know one angle of plastic surgery, which is mostly the aesthetic part, because of all the aspects around, cosmetic surgery. But as a whole, how can we describe plastic surgery?
So plastic surgery is a very wide discipline, and I know as you were introducing me, it was a bit of a mouthful, giving the full title.
Yes, board certified.
Which is plastic reconstructive and aesthetic surgery, or what we just commonly call plastic surgery. Now within plastic surgery, there are essentially two disciplines. So there's reconstructive surgery, and then there's cosmetic surgery. So reconstructive surgery is what we would see most commonly this side of the world. So dealing with burn patients, wounds, cancer surgery, just pretty much what it is restoring form to places that have been damaged by disease or by an accident. Right. So that's the reconstructive bit. Okay. And then you have the aesthetic or the cosmetic surgery bit, which is now the surgeries that we do to enhance different parts of our body to make us look better, in short. Okay. Yeah, and even then you can have what we call non-surgical cosmetics and surgical cosmetics.
Right.
Yeah, so okay. Some involve surgery and others are less invasive. They don't involve invasive surgery. Right. Yeah.
So then explain to us what does the non-surgical entail? And of course, obviously, the surgical entails the surgery, but just give us that perspective.
All right, so a lot of the non-surgical aesthetic treatments, like I said, they're not invasive. Invasive meaning that doesn't involve any extreme cutting into your skin or into different parts of your body. So it involves things, for example, like Botox is quite common, filler treatments into the face. You can have laser treatments, laser hair removal, skin tightening. So those would fall under the non-surgical aesthetic treatments. And then you have the surgical aesthetic treatments, which things like the liposuctions, the BBLs, the tummy tucks, the breast lifts, the breast augmentations. Yeah.
All right. Now let's go into what I'm sure our audience really needs to understand, especially on the angle of cosmetic surgery. It became popular in our country for quite a while now, but it's also a very taboo topic, given its popularity, social pressures as to leading why some men or women would want to do it, and then also who could afford it before and who could not afford it before. In your scenario, exactly when did it become popular?
So probably just to give a small historical background, the first plastic surgeons in Kenya have been here since the 80s. It's still a fairly young profession because there haven't been that many since that time. Right. By the time the University of Nairobi was starting the first postgraduate program in plastic surgery, which was 2013, there were probably about 10. All right, so between 1980s and 2013, there were about 10 plastic surgeons. Since 2013, since the university began the program, we're currently 32 board-certified plastic surgeons in the country.
Entire country?
In the entire country. And we have plastic surgeons in Mombasa, Nyeri, Eldoret, Thika, Nairobi, obviously, and they're expanding. And then we have the university churns out another about 5 to 9 plastic surgeons every single year. So the numbers are going up. And obviously as the number goes up, then you now have a scenario in which the services are now very readily available, and you've kind of created a demand for the service. So automatically the number of patients who are seeking these services go up, because previously what would happen is a lot of patients would fly out for these kind of procedures and have them done in other countries, and now they can safely have them done here. So we're seeing a rising trend, of course, in plastic surgery. And then there's obviously the undeniable effects of media and what we see happening in different parts of the world, and patients now saying, okay, look, that looks good, I want that, and I want something similar, or can I get it done in Kenya? And if you do your research well, you absolutely can get pretty much everything that's done outside there, have it done here in Kenya safely, professionally, and with very good outcomes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in your experience, when you're dealing with people who come to you for different issues, let's say, you have women who want liposuction and the like, what kind of procedures or aspects do you take them to? Do you take them through? If someone has pre-existing conditions or so, is that something that they need to consider before they even say, oh, I want this procedure done? To what extent do they need to understand their bodies, even if they looked perfectly normal, in the beginning?
So here's what I always say. For anyone who is interested in any plastic surgery procedure, the first point of contact has to be you sitting down with a professional, a doctor, a plastic surgeon, a board-certified plastic surgeon.
So wherever anyone goes,
yeah,
they have to make sure that it is a board-certified.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to make sure it's a board-certified plastic surgeon. The reason why this is important is because our training is very rigorous and takes a long time. Right? It takes about 5 to 6 years to train a plastic surgeon. And this has a very direct impact on what kind of results and outcomes you get and the safety of your procedure. So the first thing is to sit down with a board-certified plastic surgeon. And it's very easy to find out who is a board-certified plastic surgeon. You can simply go onto the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council website, and there's a search tab for specialists, and you'll get a list of them. Or you can reach out to the Kenya Society of Plastic, Reconstructive and Aesthetic Surgeons. Again, there's a list of all the board-certified plastic surgeons in the country. So the first point of contact has to be you sitting down with, booking an appointment and sitting down with the surgeon. We are also in an age where there's always an inclination to try and get information online, and even try and get information from your doctor online, but there's only a limit to how many questions and how well you can answer those questions online or in a comment section of an Instagram post that you've put up.
Yeah.
So
it can also be triggering. You can give yourself symptoms of things that you don't have.
Exactly. Yeah. So sit down with your surgeon, all right? Most surgeons will give you a very good consultation that ranges anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes even longer. All right, and you'll go through every single thing. They will take you all the way back to your history, any previous admissions you've had in hospital, any illnesses you're currently suffering from, any medications you're on, any history of any previous surgeries, how many kids you've had, whether you delivered by cesarean section or it was a normal delivery. All these things are very relevant to the procedure that you're looking for and the safety of the procedure. So it's called taking a very detailed history, trying to figure out who the person in front of me is. And not only that, it also involves trying to understand the motivations for them wanting the procedure. The reason why this is important is so that your surgeon is not, at the end of the day, not aligning with what you want, or creating an expectation that is unrealistic. Because when we feel that your expectation is unrealistic, then there's always a provision for us to say, look, I don't think what you want is possible or can be done in a safe manner. I would suggest, you don't do this, or let's look at doing it this other way.
Have you turned away patients like that before?
Yes, I have. If the expectation is unrealistic or something that I cannot deliver in a safe manner, then I'll be like, no, okay, we can't do this. But you'll still be able to get different options of what you can do. Because like I said, plastic surgery is very wide and our training is very broad. So there are very many things we can do to address whatever different problems that you have. Okay. So yeah, those situations do arise where we turn away patients. Or again, you know, it's also incumbent on the professional, because at the end of the day, they're professionals. If it's something that they're not able to do, or that they cannot do, or that they don't have the skill set, or they feel somebody else would be in a better place to do, then we refer. Okay, or simply just say, okay, this I can't do. Probably you should try, you know, doing this somewhere else. So you go through that entire process, sitting down with your plastic surgeon. They take you through the consultation, the history taking, and then a physical exam. Okay, physical exam means to just actually look at the problem areas that need to be addressed and examine it thoroughly and get an idea of the scope of the problem and what would be the best solution for that problem.
Okay. And
then you come up with a treatment plan. All right, so treatment plan means we're going to do A, B, C, D. We're going to do this at this point in time, and then this is what your recovery is going to look like, and all that, and all that. And then a very, very important bit of the consultation is walking through the possible risks and complications that can arise from the procedure. Because surgery is not without its risk. Every single surgery that you go under has a potential risk. The risks are low, right? They're not very high risk. We do surgery safely for the most part. Majority of the surgeries go on well without any complications. But it's an important bit of that consultation to be able to run through the complications and potential risks, just for you to understand what you're getting yourself into. It's part of a process that we call informed consent. All right, informed consent means you need to be able to understand the procedure that you're undergoing. You need to be able to understand the risk and the complications. You need to be able to understand the alternatives to the procedure that you want, and even the alternative of not doing anything at all. And then once you've understood all that stuff, it's called informed consent, and you know, you put your signature at the end of it, and you know, we're good to go to the next next step.
Right. Let's go back a bit. You've said something quite important when you mentioned that you had to turn away, you know, some patients for, you know, different reasons that you know, could not be met at that particular moment. But I mentioned to you about the social perspective, which is what we're dealing with right now. And like you rightfully mentioned, Western media, local media, it doesn't matter. Whatever you see on your internet, you're watching, you just may feel to some extent you're having FOMO, you're missing out on something, and you want your body to look like this, or you've been struggling with weight, you've been going to the gym, you've been working out, or you've been doing all these things, nothing is working, you know. So you find someone coming to you and they're emotionally a mess, and for them they have to you know, get this procedure done. So when you're dealing with someone who is emotionally unstable, and they're coming from different pressures, maybe it's their spouse, you know, men or women, they're, you know, giving them some pressure to conform, or it's society or his friends, or they're trying to date someone but they feel they can't compete, you know. How does that, you know, let me say counseling session, quote unquote, if I may call it that, look like for you?
So this is one of the big differences when you actually go and sit down with a professional. Okay, because our training also equips us to walk the patient through this entire process and to make sure that this is a patient that is ready for the procedure from many different aspects, including mental aspects. And this is why I had mentioned to you it's very important for us to be able to understand the motivations of the procedure. For example, if you want to get liposuction, because you're worried that, I don't know, your husband is going to leave you, all right? That's an unrealistic expectation for me to meet, okay? Because I cannot promise that if I do a very good liposuction job on you, your husband will not leave you, for example, all right? So that for me already is an unrealistic expectation, and I tell them, look, I can do the best lipo in the world on you, but I cannot prevent, you know, I'm not in control of what happens in your marital home. So that's why the conversation is important, and understanding the motivation behind that. There are situations in which we're able to pick up from the patients that we see that, you know, there may be an element of some form of mental disorder at play, or what we call body dysmorphia. Body dysmorphia is just essentially a patient who, it doesn't matter what you do or how many times you do it, they're not going to be comfortable with how they look. All right, and that requires some form of intervention from an actual psychologist or a psychiatrist. And in those situations, we do refer patients to have a psychological review or a psychiatry review before they undergo the procedure. There are some patients, if they're already actively under treatment for psychiatric disorders, they're experiencing depression or anxiety, we will normally send them back to their mental health professional and just ask the mental health professional.
So you work together?
Yeah, we work together to just, send like a letter of, of confidence or whatever you want to call it, that, okay, this patient is, of sound mind, and, she can undergo the procedure without any objection. And, in those situations, then yes, we do go ahead once we are comfortable, that the patient is making the right decision and is, of sound mind and of sound health.
Right. Let's look at the demographic here that, gets this done, this particular procedures. Again, we're still on the cosmetic angle. What age group are we looking at? Is it late 20s, early 30s? How does that look? So
typically we'll be looking at females, usually between the ages of 35 and about 55. Okay. Yeah. Okay. For a lot of the procedures okay.
And how does this look for men? Because I was also seeing, a report where men are doing a lot of, plastic surgery right now for bellies, for their belly, and I don't know, kneecaps, something, like that. I'm not, it's different for them, but of course, Also, what's the age group for that?
I think the statistics would vary all over the world. Not too many men this part of the world are getting cosmetic surgery procedures done, but they do. They have men coming for liposuction, or what we call high definition liposuction. If they want, their abs to stick out and pop out, they're coming in for that.
Create them?
Yeah.
Literally create?
Yeah. Or a typical scenario, probably the most common man we'd see coming in is the ones that have what we call gynecomastia, or the man boob, as it's called. So they come in for liposuction to sort that out, because again, it's something that's very embarrassing to them. So those would typically be the kind of men that we see coming in for cosmetic surgery procedures. They're still a bit, stigmatized.
Yeah, because they're men, like how society has conditioned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned taboo a little earlier on.
Yes, I did.
And I feel like it's also a really important thing to to touch on, because plastic surgery, to a sense, has been quite vilified. Like you see, it's viewed as controversial, or it's viewed as a taboo, especially this part of the world. In the West, they've kind of gotten over it, but still here we have to fight the culture, or how it is perceived, and in all these things. Of course, as a plastic surgeon, maybe my view is obviously a little bit biased, but I don't see it as a taboo. And this is usually what I tell patients or people who normally ask me these questions. You need to understand that just as human beings, as we naturally are, every single day that we wake up or we go about our business, we are always trying to be the best possible version of ourselves in everything that we do, in how we dress and how we look. So wanting to look your best isn't such a foreign idea and shouldn't be. The problem now comes in when what society thinks about how you go about doing that necessarily.
Right.
There are people who want to get liposuction done, and they should be allowed to. The only caveat is that when they do choose to do these things, there needs to be an avenue for them to get it done well and to get it done safely. And that's where plastic surgeons come in.
I see.
Okay? Because provided it can be done safely, provided it can be done well and with good outcomes, then let it be.
Right. And when it comes to now the safety, dynamic is where, the real issues are. I mean, unfortunately, just recently, we had this lady, Lucy Omboy, who lost her life because, she was getting this procedure done, but complications followed. In 2021, I believe, we also had another lady who died of the same scenario, sepsis, right? So we've had this happening in the country, and that is why I kept asking you, if someone wants to do these particular procedures, what should they look for? And you've mentioned quite a lot in your conversation here that it should be a board certified surgeon. But when you have scenarios like this and with your training, you know, exactly what happens, you know, because this is a case of liposuction. The one in 2021 was also a case of liposuction, you know, so there's definitely something that is getting punctured, you know, which is the intestines, and things start going left in your tummy, right? So just give us a perspective of exactly, you know, I don't know how to put it, I'm not a doctor, but how that should not be basically be happening. You know, if you want to, like you said, it is controversial here, but it is not something that is new or we should even be looking at in this particular way.
So every surgery carries a risk, and there are different kinds of risks involved with different surgeries, and these are things that have been very well documented over the years since, you know, plastic surgery began thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
All right. So we know
even in different countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And complications happen all over the world. It's not just here in Kenya. Even in the West, they get them in Europe, all these places.
Yep.
All right. And again, like I said, they're very well documented and understood and known complications. So anytime you're undergoing a procedure, there's an inherent risk that you can develop any one of those complications. So the name of the game is, how do you ensure, as a patient and also for myself as a doctor, that this risk is at an absolute minimum, all right, to the point where, you know, it would rarely ever happen. And on the end of the doctor or on the end of the professional that's where our training comes in, okay? So have I been adequately enough and well trained enough to do this particular procedure? Is it within my scope of practice, and should I be doing this procedure? Am I well trained enough to do it? A plastic surgeon trained here in Kenya or anywhere in the world for that matter literally spends 5-6 years, like I said, doing these procedures, learning the ins and outs of them completely, and are very competent in doing so. So the first thing for the patient is to make sure that the surgeon doing their procedure is recognized by the regulatory body in whichever country that is. And here in Kenya, that's the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council. All right, so you need to make sure that your surgeon is board certified. This has a very direct impact on the quality of the procedure and the outcome of the procedure thereafter. Just by doing that, you're lowering the risks that, you know, could potentially occur from the surgery itself. The next thing again is the facility where the procedure is being done. And again, whether that is registered by the medical council, because any procedure, any facility or any institution where these procedures are done, there's certain criteria that they have to meet to be able to get these kind of procedures done. And if they're not meeting those criteria, then you're compromising again on the safety of the procedures. So unfortunately, again, in this day and age of a lot of misinformation on social media, there is a duty on the patient to be able to do their due diligence. And there also, of course, is what we call the duty of care on the facility and the surgeon themselves to make sure that they've done everything in their power to deliver the procedure safely.
Right.
All right. And still, even then, there's always a risk that, you know, something could potentially go wrong. That's important to understand, right? It's not to say that it will happen. It's more like in the unlikely event of a complication, these are the complications that can happen, and which is why you're supposed to go through that entire process with the consultation and, very importantly, the informed consent.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, Dr. we're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. Do stay with us.
This is the biggest